Madam Clerk, are we? Could somebody go back and check? As the current chairman of the Fairfax County School Board, and with a quorum of the board members present, I call this July 10, 2014, first regular meeting of the fiscal year to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence, and the performance of the national anthem by Samantha Dempsey, 2014 Cappy's winner of the Best Lead Actress in a Musical Little Shop of Horrors. Samantha is a rising senior at Westfield High School and plans to pursue musical theater in college after high school. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Again, there was a Samantha Dempsey from Westfield High School. In 2014 Cappy's winner of Best Lead Actress in a Musical, The Little Shop of Horrors. Thank you, Samantha, for coming out. Next on the agenda is certification of closed meeting compliance. In order to comply with the Section 2.2 3712D of the Code of Virginia, it is necessary for the board to certify that since the Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on July 10, 2014, to the best of its members' knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. The foregoing shall also be deemed to include the certification of each school board member who served on a student disciplinary committee that those closed committee meetings are lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Section 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia, and that only student disciplinary matters were heard, discussed, or considered in those closed committee meetings. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Strauss and seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor, raise your hand. The vote is unanimous. On behalf of the school board, I would like to welcome our 2014-2015 student representative, Harris Latif. Harris is a rising senior at Langley High School, and we'll have a chance to hear from him a little later in the meeting. I believe that Harris's family members are here as well. Would you like to stand? I know that Harris has a busy life, but with him being on the school board now, you're not going to be able to see him at all for the next year. A few announcements before we continue tonight's meeting. There are some changes to tonight's agenda. The superintendent has withdrawn agenda item 5.02, policy 3202, new course proposals and deletion and consolidation of existing courses from consideration at this time. Agenda item 6.08, award of a contract, Langley High School renovation project has been withdrawn because the permit process has been delayed. Agenda item 6.09, revisions to the approved 2014-2015 standard school year calendar has been added as new business tonight with action scheduled for July 24, 2014. If you would like to access tonight's agenda and related meeting documents, you can do so by going to the FCPS website, select School Board, and then upcoming meetings and agendas. The meeting is also being streamed live on the FCPS website homepage. Click on Watch School Board Live. If you have signed up to speak before the board during citizen participation, please turn in 16 copies of your remarks at this time to the deputy clerk sitting in the section to my right over there. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that is being discussed tonight, that information is also on the table by the auditorium entrance. Please turn off or silence your cell phone. We have another important announcement about personnel appointment. And let me call on Mrs. Schultz for a motion.
I move to appoint Dr. Jane Lipp, the Assistant Superintendent of Special Services, effective August 1st, 2014, and authorize the chairman to execute a contract reflecting this action.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Stork. You are going to second in the closed meeting on this motion. So it was seconded by Mr. Stork. And all those in favor of this motion, raise your hand. The vote is unanimous, and congratulations, Dr. Lee. Let me invite Dr. Lip to come to the podium, and I'm going to call on Dr. Garza to say a few words. I promise you that she's not going to embarrass you, but after Dr. Garza's remarks is done, we'll give an opportunity to say a few words to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You took a leap of faith there. I may very well embarrass you. I don't know. It gives me, I'm delighted tonight to have the opportunity to recommend Dr. Jane Lipp for this position. Of course, Dr. Dockery, being our new Chief Academic Officer, was very instrumental in this process and in making the selection. Over this past year, I've had the opportunity, given that Jane is an officer in the High School Principal Association, I've had the opportunity and pleasure to get to know her better, having had the opportunity to interact with her quite a bit in terms of that work. And I've just grown to respect and admire her for so many wonderful reasons. So it really gives me great pleasure to know now that she will be part of our leadership team and will continue to do so much great work in supporting our children throughout this division. Jane has 28 years here in FCPS. The last 10 have been at South County High School, and I know that in the last six of those 10 have been as the principal. And I know the South County High School community will be sad to see her leave, but she leaves that school very well situated with lots of strong leadership that that Jane has developed over time. So I won't go on anymore, but I would just say, and you're joined today by your wonderful husband, John, who, it was funny because he said, I'm going to miss the kids at South County too. And I which is great because it shows that they both as a couple have really embraced that school community. But now we have lots of other schools, 196 of them, that I know will be happy to see you, see you at their schools at any time. So we welcome you, Jane, Dr. Lip, and we look forward to the wonderful impact. You're filling big shoes, of course, with Dr. Dockery, but the good thing is she's right here in terms of supporting the work. So we welcome you and look forward to working with you in this new capacity.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, distinguished school board members, Dr. Garza, the leadership team members, and honored guests. Thank you for inviting me this evening to meet and speak with you, and it's an honor to accept the position of Assistant Superintendent for Special Services. I have long admired the work of Dr. Dockery and her staff, as well as the department's outstanding work and numerous contributions to our district and our profession. Throughout my career in Fairfax County Public Schools, I've really had the good fortune of holding various positions that have prepared me for this new challenge and have allowed me to grow personally and professionally. And please know that I consider it a privilege and am thankful to be part of a district where student achievement, staff, and family involvement and satisfaction are deemed important and essential. This new position offers me the opportunity to serve all of our schools and departments, and we will collaborate to further strengthen and extend our programs and services for all students. This experience also allows me to focus on my true passion and my conviction that all truly means all, and that all students, we will meet the needs of all students in all of our school communities. So I look forward to serving you as we work together on behalf of our district and school constituents. And thank you for having me this evening.
Mr. Schultz.
I just want to say, Dr. Lip, I was pleased to spend some time talking with you about this. And while I'm sad for my South County community, it's a very strong community, and we're looking forward to, new leadership for them, but you've left them in great shape. And as the liaison to ACSD for the last 2 years, I'm very much looking forward to working with you and Dr. Dockery, although she's filling little shoes, not big shoes. But a big role in working forward and looking forward to with you in that capacity going forward. So congratulations. Thank you.
Mr. Stoll.
Dr. Lip, you and I have worked together for quite some time, and it's been really been an amazing journey from my initial meeting of you in a trailer and on a construction site to seeing a beautiful school kind of grow around you and Mr. Rumberger, and really all the care and effort and really focus that you had on kids from the very, very beginning, and seeing the team of people that they brought together to really make that such an amazing school, and really and most importantly, how they brought the community together around what excellent schools are about. So I'm highly confident that she will have the same abilities in this new job, and I'm confident that we can further grow and improve what we know is one of our biggest challenges always, is helping each child reach their full potential. So thank you, Dr. Lip, and thank you, board members.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to the next order of business, which is annual school board organizational arrangements, that I have a special recognition for a very, very special person that very recently board members met in a closed meeting to discuss the performance of our superintendent during her first year in Fairfax County. And we all agree that she deserves special commendation in public. And Ms. Evans and Ms. Hines worked on the certificate of commendation signed by all 12 board members. So we'll be presenting the certificate of commendation to Dr. Garza, and let me read what it says. Certificate of commendation honoring Superintendent Karen K. Garza. 1 year ago, the school board welcomed Dr. Karen Garza to Fairfax County Public Schools as our new superintendent. Dr. Garza began her tenure as a superintendent at a very challenging time for the school system after a decade of growing needs, rising expectations, and declining resources. Dr. Garza tackled these challenges with great vigor and forged strong relationships with the teachers, students, parents, community members, and other stakeholders. Dr. Garza made excellent progress on many critical school board and school system priorities, such as creating a culture of responsiveness and accountability and setting FCPS on a course of long-range strategic planning. She also successfully reorganized the school system leadership for efficiency and school improvement. Therefore, the school board, Fairfax County School Board, is pleased to recognize and commend Dr. Karen Garza for an extraordinarily successful first year as a superintendent and commits its full support to continued progress and innovation, signed and presented on July 10, 2014 by all 12 members of the Fairfax County School Board. Congratulations. I'll present the certificate in front, and we'll have a picture taken together. By the way, Dr. Garza, I want you to know that in my 16 years of service on the school board, probably Mrs. Strauss will say the same thing in her more than 20-some years of service, that this is the first time the school board has ever done that in public for superintendent.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, God, that was really a very nice surprise. I'm very humbled and honored that you would acknowledge my service over just this 1 year. It's been a delightful year. We've gotten, I think, great work underway, but it's not just because of me. I have a wonderful team that surrounds me, and we have wonderful principals and teachers and just so many great parents and people that support us. And I've enjoyed so much getting to know and work with all of you. And I think there's great things ahead for us. Certainly there's a history that we can all be proud of in FCPS, but I think there's great things ahead. And I'm just delighted and honored and very humbled to continue to be a part of this, and I'm delighted to be here. I will tell you that It was a major change to move all the way from Texas to Virginia. We haven't regretted it for a moment. I really love being here and being a part of a school system with the reputation that FCPS has, and building upon that. I'm really honored. So thank you very much. Very special. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to go to the next order of businesses, which is annual school board organizational arrangements. Section 22.176 of the Code of Virginia specifies that at the annual organizational meeting, a school board shall elect one of its members to serve as a chairman and may elect one of its members to serve as a vice chairman, both for a one-year term, and shall also approve other appointments and designations of responsibility necessary for board operation during the year. And Dr. Garza will be conducting the selection process for the school board chairman for the next year. Before I call on Dr. Garza to actually conduct, let me note that it has been my honor and privilege to serve as the chairman for the last 2 years. Thank you for all the support and advice and counsel I have received from my colleagues, superintendent, and LT members, and especially school board office staff. Thank you, Dr. Garza.
Thank you, Chairman Moon. I guess I won't say that very much longer, but thank you, Chairman Moon, and members of the board. At this time, it gives me pleasure to open the floor to nominations for the chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. Yes, Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. It is my great privilege to nominate Tamara Derana Koufax to be the next chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. Working side by side with her this past year as a chairman and vice chair. Maybe should we ask for the
yes,
second?
If you don't mind, let me. I'll come back to you in just a moment, Mr. Moon. Is there a second?
Second.
Tamara Dernak Koufax has been nominated as chairman. Are there any other nominations at this time? Hearing no other nominations, the motion before the board is to elect Tamara Dernak Koufax as chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. I'll now call upon Mr. Moon and Ms. Smith if they'd like to follow up on their motions. Mr. Moon.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Garza. As I was saying, it is my great privilege to nominate Tamara Derana Koufax to be the next chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. Working side by side with her this past year as a chairman and vice chair, I have observed a solid collaborative effort on her part, as well as a true love for Fairfax County Public Schools. Ms. Derana Koufax has served the Lee District well and is also a team player for the greater good across the county. She is aware of the challenges of our school system and has ideas about collaborating to meet those challenges. One thing is for sure, she is not afraid to speak out. Ms. Derana Koufax is a tireless worker who well understands the job of the chairman is not a part-time one we all thought that we were getting into. She will be fair and deliberate. An excellent spokesperson for our schools, she knows how to brag about FCPS and how to capitalize on its assets, and she fully understands how to ask for resources. She is a good listener and can merge what she hears into actions. Ms. Derana Koufax has been an FCPS parent for 14 years, and that experience provides her with wonderful perspective to bring to the role of chairman. I am certain that Ms. Derana Koufax will capably lead us through the next year with wisdom and grace as FCPS continues to grow and change and excel. I support her wholeheartedly and with my best wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. I am really pleased to second the nomination. I urge all my colleagues to support Mrs. Derana Koufax as our next chairman. I know that she will work tirelessly to ensure that all board members receive the information they need for decision making, that strategy and having a strategic focus has been a goal of hers since she became on the board, and I know it will be vital to have her at the helm as our chairman as we go through the strategic planning process. And I'm really excited for her leadership for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. At this time, we'll proceed with the vote. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Other board members that wish to speak? Forgive me. Mrs. Strauss. Ms. Schultz, excuse me.
Hey, Janie, we both wearing pearls. We're interchangeable tonight. So, this is going to be, I think, a difficult evening for the school board, and I think that what's going to transpire over the next few minutes, it's going to make it evident. And the difficulty is that I think that this board has struggled mightily, and sometimes successfully, and sometimes less so, to do its best work. And there are times when we've done our best work as professionally and capably as the duties of office require. And there's times when we haven't done that. And the times when we haven't done that have been divisive times. And the lead of the last couple of days up till tonight's election has been a horse race of epic proportions behind the scenes. And the message was made to the board that in order for this board to function well, that one of the two seats, either chair or vice chair, needed to be somebody who's been on the board for a long time. And apparently 4.5 years doesn't qualify as a long time. Even though you could be the president of the United States and back out of office in 4.5 years. Elected twice by your colleagues, by your constituents, doesn't count as a long time. And so there was mixed messaging behind the scenes as to what equals leadership qualifications for chair and vice chair. And I think that there was a lot of effort put into trying to drive this board to the path of its best work. I think the example of the full day Monday vote was an example of some tremendous professional, collegial, and collaborative work. 2 years ago, there was a vote from this dais that was probably an example of some of our worst work. And I had hoped that we would arrive at this evening's end of this organizational vote more on the end of the professional, collaborative, and collegial. I think that we're going to end up more on a divisive, tone-deaf, intolerant, and indifferent vote. And I don't think that that's the best way for this board forward. And as a result, I am very chagrined to be in a position of withholding a vote in this chairman's race. And I didn't think we needed to be here. I thought that there was a place where we had achieved a resolution that was workable and collaborative, but that turned out not to be the case a mere couple of hours ago. And it's sad for me for another year of school board work to begin with our less than stellar abilities put forth. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen tonight. So I'm sorry that I'm going to be withholding my vote this evening.
Ms. McLaughlin, will you?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. McLaughlin?
I think what I would like to share with my colleagues and with Dr. Garza and leadership team and the public who might be watching is that I think it's really important that we look at the capability and the promise of what our school board can be. We just celebrated our year of having selected Dr. Garza, and it is truly the most important and the most successful thing this board has ever done. And I will forever be proud of the work that the 12 of us did in unanimously selecting Dr. Garza. And I think that's what makes me sad about tonight for this election for chair and vice chair. As my colleague Elizabeth Schultz noted, 2 years ago, this board found itself in a deadlock 6-6 for its chairman's race. And the sad part about it was 5 of us had no idea that there'd been a broker deal behind the scenes on how to break that deadlock. And in order for a board, even one as large as we are, 12 of us, to be successful, we have to be building relationships of trust and mutual respect. And as Ms. Schultz pointed out, we thought we were trying to move toward a compromise where we could bring the leadership of the chair and vice chair together that would represent all 12 of us and the relationships that we're trying to continue to build and strengthen. And so to find out only hours before our vote tonight that in fact the issue of the vice chairman's race had been changed, that a new candidate was now being presented, that new rationale for that new candidate was being presented. For those of us who were trying to find that compromise of the chair and vice chair and to make this a very positive meeting, I think is what is most disheartening. And when we get to the discussion of the vice chairman's race, I think more of this will become more clear, especially to Dr. Garza and leadership team who may not understand everything that's happened. But a key piece of leadership is being able to guide your colleagues in the right direction. And as Ms. Schultz mentioned that she's going to be withholding her vote for the chairman's race, that's where I find myself this evening. I admire very much Tamara Derenak-Koufax. I think that her work as a vice chair has been stellar, and I know that she wants to represent the 12 of us to the best of her ability. Where I'm disappointed is that she wasn't successful in helping the other 6 colleagues understand that in throwing in a candidate against someone who'd already presented their candidacy and had the faith and support of 5 of us who never have served in the role for now this 3rd election for chair and vice chair, I was hoping that this would be a way that our board could come together. And I think that maybe that's what's most important that I wanted my colleagues to understand, is that this might have seemed to be an innocuous, decision on their part to throw up a last-minute candidate against Ms. Evans, but it really has deep reverberations, and I'm just very sorry that after all the steps forward that this board has made in the 2.5 years, instead what I see tonight is it's the deja vu of we're right back where we were 2.5 years ago. And in terms of building faith and trust, we've really damaged that. So I will be abstaining from tonight's vote on the chairmanship race.
Mr. Stork.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. I regrettably share some of the comments that have been made previously. I have a little bit of history with this, although my history is the follow-on history of school boards that were incredibly divisive. I didn't serve on them. I know several members here did serve on those. And when I was elected in 2003, part of the reason that there was a changeover in the board, we went to 6 new board members at that time, is because the dominant theme in the public was that this is the board that could not work together, was divisive, and was not able to really succeed in the way that the community wanted it to succeed. And there was a deep commitment on the part of the board members then, and there was for many, many years after that, to try to balance what our leadership team represented. That's important because we recognize that we're always going to have some differences between us. I mean, that's just the nature of our work. But doing that matters. Leadership is always about choices. Every single one of us, when we are a leader in a group or in a situation, we're making choices that reflect our personal styles, our philosophy, really our approach to people as well. And those choices, that style, that thing that we do to try to bring people together is what allows us to be successful as individuals and ultimately to be successful as a group. I know that an essential part of that, particularly on a board where you have 12 people who can do, frankly, whatever they want, and none of us can tell each other what we're going to do, the most difficult part of what we do isn't to, in essence, make a decision. It's how do we get people to align themselves so that we can get things done. And I've found my personal, I guess, finding is that the best way to do that is to involve and kind of enlarge and kind of make the pie as big as possible. You don't narrow the pie, you make it bigger. That obviously gives everybody more opportunity, more chances to feel empowered and be engaged and be involved. And ultimately, that's a positive energy that then gets moved into another plane, another higher level. So we had an opportunity tonight to do that. We absolutely did. And I've spoken with the people involved already about my views, and I've tried to share that in a way that hopefully is constructive and positive, but I don't feel good. I feel very sad about the fact that I'm not voting affirmatively, that I'm going to be abstaining in this vote. That's not for lack of the abilities of Ms. Darren Kofax. It has to do with a key part of why I think we have leadership, which is to bring people together and to make sure that the board fully represents, as best as possible, as much as possible, the board as a whole. So historically, we brought that together, and I served with plenty of other people who didn't agree with me, chair, vice chair, et cetera, and we had our, and one of them is smiling right now because we remember many times we had those conversations, but we did a great job of reaching out and connecting with the whole board. There were certain people that we had a more difficult time speaking with, and one or the other of us could speak to them in a way that helped to make sure that we listened to them, that we heard them, that we truly could make sure that their concerns, their issues were brought into the whole and hopefully incorporated into the final product. And that really was the opportunity we had tonight. And we still have it, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I think this is an opportunity where we're going to miss out. And that deeply saddens me. I think it'll make our work harder than it needed to be this year. And frankly, I think we will accomplish less than what we could have as a result of that. So it's with great regret, but I'm hoping that my predictions will prove wrong, but it's difficult to see that at this time. Thank you.
Any others? Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. I'm going to reiterate, I think, what some of my colleagues have said, but I'm going to take the tact of depersonalizing it and just talking about values. And I thought we shared all these values as a group, the values of teamwork, the values of providing leadership opportunities for all and not playing favorites, which we discussed in a forum recently and everyone agreed to. The value of no surprises and professionalism, a value of trust, no backdoor 11th hour deals, and last but certainly not least, a value of personal and professional respect. And I have to say, the way that this whole process has gone about, and the public probably is very confused, but you're getting a sense that a group of us are very, very unhappy with the way that this happened. For those reasons, I too will abstain my vote on the chairman.
Ms. Hines.
Thank you. Just briefly. I do think, for the sake of those who have no idea what we're talking about, I think that we actually have done a good job, and we do a good job as a group of working together when we're working for kids, when we're working for what's best for kids. We have a great leader in Dr. Garza. We really do very good work. For some reason, when it comes to choosing leadership, maybe it's like every other group of human beings, we get a little, competitive. We're politicians, right? And so I'm not sure that we are our best selves or we do our best work always, but I want to make sure that what you're hearing tonight, the community doesn't take away as a reflection on Ms. Darren Kofax or her potential for leadership. There's no way that Ms. Darren Kofax could have resolved all of this. I mean, I think you can probably tell right now that that probably was not possible for one person to do. I have complete faith in Darren Kofax as someone who will lead us after tonight back into the good work that we've been doing. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear about that.
Thank you. Any other, McLaughlin? Ms. McLaughlin?
I appreciate what my colleague Ms. Hines said, but given that four of us have now spoken, I just wanted to make sure, because I think there's a little bit, perhaps our colleagues didn't quite hear where our concerns are. This is not about being petty or competitive or egos involved. I think Ms. Reed really summed it up beautifully and best, which is that we are talking about that we need to work as a team. And there are 7 people on this board who've not once had to experience what it's like to be shut out when it comes to the chair and vice chair selection process, in terms of feeling that there's leadership that represents their comfort level and their ability to be engaged. And so I just think, again, it's very important for the public to understand this is anything but petty. It really is more about the fact that we will be our best selves, the 12 of us, when it's recognized that this is not a board of 7 versus 5. It really is all 12 of us together.
At this time, we'll proceed with the vote. The motion before the board is that Tamara Derenak Koufax be elected chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. All those in favor of the motion to elect Mrs. Derenak Koufax as chairman of the Fairfax County Board, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. All in favor, Mr. Velkoff, Ms. Hines, Mr. Moon, Ms. Derenak Koufax, Ms. Smith, Mr. McElveen, and Ms. Strauss. Those opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Stork, Ms. Reed, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Schultz, and Ms. Evans. The motion passes. Congratulations to Mrs. Derenak Koufax, our new chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. And forgive me, the names. You'll have Ms. Derenak Koufax. You'll get very well accustomed to doing that, and thankfully you don't have to rely upon your superintendent to do that, because I will mess up every time. Excuse me, Ms. Schultz.
That's okay. I often mess up some of my colleagues' names exactly as well. Tonight, it has been a little bit of a difficult night, but I have to say I am honored and I am humbled to accept this role as the chair of our Fairfax County School Board. I do want to thank Mr. Moon and Ms. Smith for your kind words earlier, and I do want to thank Mr. Moon for your service as our chair for the past 2 years. It's a job with many complexities, and it's often thankless. It's work that requires patience, an open mind, and perseverance. And Mr. Moon, you contain the right mix of each of these, because we voted you in twice, and we know how hard that's been. You and I, we do not agree on every issue, but it has been a pleasure serving as your vice chair and to watch and learn under your leadership. Thank you, Elian. I appreciate your time spent with me. We are a school board, as you have heard, with many challenges, but I would also like to tell you we have even more successes and more successes to come. We have inspirational and invigorated new leadership. We have amazing teachers, administrators, staff, and students. We are a board with passion. We are a board with a lot of passion. And through these many opinions and the diverse ideas on how to reach our goals, sometimes the road is rocky. And because everyone has a different opinion, everyone's combined input, though, in a positive way, can create a discourse that can inspire and can innovate solutions to our challenges. It is my wish, and I will work to bring out the strengths and leadership abilities in each and every one of you. I want us to be the best board ever. I will respect your opinions, as I think you know I have, while working as the vice chair. I will work to keep everyone informed. Sometimes you may not like what I say, but I will keep us moving forward in a strategic way. And I do look forward to working as a team in partnership, 12 of us, plus 1, plus the leadership, plus all of you out there in the community. That's how I intend to work. I'm honored again for the chance and opportunity. Thank you. And now I begin. At this time, I will open the floor to nominations for the Vice Chair of the School Board. Mr. Stork.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. It is my wonderful privilege to nominate Sandy Evans as Vice Chair of the Fairfax County School Board.
Is there a second? Ms. Schultz. Sandy Evans has been nominated for Vice Chairman. Are there other nominations? Ms. Hines?
Yes, I nominate Ted Velkoff for Vice Chairman.
Is there a second? Mr. McElveen? Sandy Evans and Ted Velkoff have been nominated for Vice Chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, the motion before the board is to elect Sandy Evans or Ted Velkoff as Vice Chairman of the Fairfax County School Board. I'll call on those members who nominated Ms. Evans and Mr. Velkoff for comments, beginning with Mr. Stork.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. It's my pleasure and privilege to nominate Ms. Evans. We have had an opportunity to work together for many years. Prior to her joining the school board, she was elected in an off-year election in 2010 from the Mason District and re-elected again in 2011. Her advocacy on behalf of students and children have been extraordinary for at least 10 years that I'm aware of, and maybe far beyond that. And her knowledge of the school system, her knowledge of board members, her familiarity with our work is unparamount. She has been budget chair and vice chair, and we all know the difficulty of that and bringing folks together around a budget and the amount of communication it takes to do that well. Public Engagement Committee, she's been on the Infrastructure Finance Committee, worked with our Board of Supervisor member colleagues as well as school board members. Governance, she has outstanding communication skills given her past experience and work with the Washington Post, as well as her newsletter, which we all read voraciously for tidbits that we can use to recycle to our own readers. And her character and her commitment to all of us and the honesty with which we have always heard her voice is one that we can be very proud of to serve as our vice chair, and I think will do a very effective job at representing all of us, not just some of us and not just certain interests, but all of us. So with that, it is my greatest privilege to, again, nominate her for vice chair.
Ms. Schultz?
So I may have usurped a role from Ms. Reed, but I apologize. I hope I do well in your stead and that you have the opportunity to follow up. The unique thing about Ms. Evans is that while I don't always agree with her, and I don't, that the level of courtesy and respect that she displays to all her fellow board members is something to be applauded. And even when she doesn't agree with someone, she's still willing to pick up the phone and speak with them. She is willing to listen and share her points of view in a respectful manner. She understands that we don't agree on all things all the time, but that the best work of this board is to move the greatest number of people the smallest distance, not 7 people to the finish line. And that's the type of thing that this board needs to strive towards, is a board that works collaboratively in such a way that we talk more often about what we have in common than what separates us, and that we have a vision and an understanding that each of us chooses to lead with honor and integrity rather than creating, as my colleague Ms. Reed said, backdoor deals and coalitions in order to get small agendas taken care of. And I think that knowing that I don't agree with Ms. Reed or Mr. Stork or Ms. Evans, on any number of issues, but that I could put the full faith and trust of this board in leadership that will get us going in the right direction is the reason that I think that she absolutely is the way that this board starts to do more productive work than less. And we've done too much of that over the last 2 years. And the board's policy is that we focus on issues, not personalities. And what happens this evening is about personalities, not issues. And that's not our best work. And I think that we need Ms. Evans to help us do the opposite.
And I'll call on Ms. Hines.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy to nominate Ted Velkoff for the vice chair position. Ted has shown over the last 2.5 years great leadership on issues, particular issues. He thinks outside the box a lot. He's a bold leader on issues that have to do with education, with the things, always keeping our focus on the students and on academic achievement and what's best for them, and being willing to say, we're the political arm of this business here in Fairfax County, so that's our role. We have to think big, we have to talk big. That's leadership. He's also shown tremendous leadership on the budget. As everyone knows, we've had a couple of very tough budget cycles, actually several, but definitely the last couple of years, and Ted's been vice chair and chair of the budget committee the last couple of years and has led us very well on that. I think remarkably well given all the challenges that we had. I always felt like we were very well informed, and we all had the opportunity to participate in that in a meaningful way as often as possible. Ted is always available, reaching out to everyone, and we saw that. We all saw that on the budget. So a very inclusive way of leading and governing. Ted also shows a commitment to honesty in all that he does. I think sometimes I sort of refer to it as, he goes back to basic values a lot for us and brings us back to that. And he always wants to make sure that he's speaking honestly and from the heart, and always checking himself to make sure that he's doing what's best for others. And I think that's very important. So I think we need his bold leadership. Now, I would say none of this is to take away at all from Ms. Evans. This is, as Ms. Evans knows, this was a very difficult choice for me this year. I have worked with Ms. Evans several times, and I really wish that I could support both tonight. If I could vote for 2 vice chairs tonight, I would. But as it happens, it's a 1-year position. So I hope that I will have an opportunity to support Ms. Evans down the road for a leadership position. We have a lot of leaders on this board. That's a good thing, So we are competitive right now when it comes to who's going to be the leader right now. But I know that Ted is the right person for this position. He will help us move forward from here. He will make sure that we continue to do good work together. The community deserves that, and I know that Ted is committed to that.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Mr. McElveen?
Nothing further.
All right. Oh, Ms. Schultz.
So the first speech was my second for Ms. Evans. And so now I'll explain my vote. And maybe this is too confusing for the public or leadership team or the superintendent, but until last night, Ms. Smith was the other candidate for vice chair, and she withdrew. And we were in a 6-6 deadlock. We couldn't break it. And at 3:30 this afternoon, I got a phone call from Mr. Velkoff saying that he was a candidate for vice chair. And the work in 2.5 years of this board, the message from this board has been that this board needs to do its homework, that don't show up to the table and surprise your colleagues, that our colleagues don't like last-minute amendments or last-minute motions. And those are just mere agenda items. Those are just mere action items on an agenda of any given meeting. Even if they're budget, it's still an action item. we're talking about the leadership of the board for a year, that hours ago, I'm informed that a deal has been made and that there's 7 votes for somebody else. And for somebody who wants the role of leadership, whether chair or vice chair of this board, to say that previously the 6-6 could not be broken because there was someone recruited because Miss Evans wasn't sufficiently, I don't know, sufficiently qualified after 4.5 years on the board, after being elected by her constituents twice, that somehow Miss Daranack Koufax and Miss Evans couldn't work together as chair and vice chair, is a sad state of affairs that 2 professional colleagues could not find a way to navigate this board forward, so much so that something had to be cobbled together within hours of tonight's meeting to undo a way forward. And that the only answer was now not somebody with tremendous experience on the board of 15 years like Ms. Smith to help Ms. Daranack Koufax be chair, even though she's had a year of vice chair, and the very thought or implication that somehow she needed help to be chair because being vice chair for a year wasn't sufficient training ground to be chair is, I find, offensive on her behalf. I'm offended for her that the notion was that she needed the help. So now if the candidate isn't Ms. Smith with 15 years, but Mr. Velkoff, who has 2 years fewer than Ms. Evans, then that argument is off the table. And it's now not about experience. So what is it about? And there's been no explanation of what it's about. Are we saying that 4.5 years of Ms. Evans' leadership and her litany of volunteer service and work on the board as extolled by Mr. Stork is insufficient to be vice chair? Well, that doesn't hold water either. So what is it? And the unparalleled invective that this action today by some on this board to cobble together and undercut one of their colleagues is so profoundly disrespectful of the work that she's done and the work of this whole board, 12 together, trying to do the work of one of the largest school districts in the nation. It's embarrassing. And when I made that very clear to Mr. Velkoff, and he said, "You're right," and I said, if we haven't done our homework on a motion 3 days in advance, how possibly could we do our work within hours of a vote on a leadership? And that is hypocritical to the extreme. So that's why my vote is going to remain with Ms. Evans, and I find what is about to happen such a dark moment for this board as to be a sad day. And I hope that there are brighter days in the future, but this is one of the examples of not doing our homework beforehand and not having the honest, integrity-based discussions amongst our colleagues that allow us to do our work well.
Ms. McLaughlin.
I first want to begin by sharing with my colleagues my conversation with Mr. Velkoff earlier today when he was able to finally reach me or call me. He had a busy day, but so I heard from him at 3 o'clock that he was in fact going to be running for vice chair. And as you've heard in the testimony, that not only was a surprise for 5 of us to learn that today, but even I believe for the other 6 colleagues, and maybe if you count Mr. Velkoff, a surprise for him too, as of last night. I think the issue here is that both Mr. Velkoff and Ms. Evans are wonderful school board colleagues, and I truly enjoy working with both of them. And I think that's what makes this vote so upsetting, because there are some of us on the board that are a little more dynamic in our personalities, and you know, it's a little more colorful and don't necessarily have the crossover for all 12. But both Ms. Evans and Mr. Velkoff, I think, really do an outstanding job of trying to connect and relate to all of us. And to that, I'm grateful for both of them. But what's upsetting then, as Ms. Hines noted, that it's a one-year position, why does it need to be Mr. Velkoff this year? If Ms. Evans put her hat in the ring several weeks ago, this board, more than 7, has told her and told each other that we respected her as vice chair of budget, chair of the budget, and the 4 years she has served with us on this board, then why the need to throw in Mr. Velkoff's candidacy at the last minute? It then calls into question what Ms. Schultz has raised. Are we really operating from a position of integrity and honesty? Because when you do look at the credentials and the ability of both Mr. Velkoff and Ms. Evans, they're both very, very capable. But Ms. Evans has served longer. Ms. Evans did make her intentions clear. And suddenly, 7 people on this board not only weren't honest with Ms. Evans, they weren't even honest with the other 5 of us, of saying why it was that we were thinking this was an election between two individuals, and then suddenly things changed as of this morning. And so I think what I would like for my colleagues and the public to understand is this is about a starting point of good faith. And unfortunately, tonight's election for the vice chair, it's not a starting point of good faith. And that's what makes it's so disappointing on where we find ourselves 2.5 years after working together. So to Ms. Evans, I would like to say that I deeply appreciate not only your service on the board for these past 4.5 years, but your willingness to put yourself forward and to speak with all 12 of us in a timely manner to really assess the support that you thought you had on this board. And to Mr. Velkoff, I just want to say that I appreciate that this has been difficult on you as well. And I do think that you are really faced with something that I guess in the end you felt that you needed to step forward. But I think the most important point that was being made so far to date is I don't think people have really thought through what this says to Ms. Evans and why we would do this to her. And that's my saddest point about tonight.
Ms. Smith.
I am pleased to support Mr. Velkoff as vice chair of the school board. I know that he has constantly worked hard to speak with all his colleagues and help us achieve work. I really don't want to stray from speaking to the motion on the table, but I think it does need to be said, since my name was brought up in the conversation, that I was kind of hoping this wouldn't come out, is that we were 6-6. We were truly split, and nobody was willing to change their mind. And I sure as heck would have loved to have called Mrs. Reed or called Mrs. McLaughlin or called Mrs. Schultz and asked them to switch their vote for me. But I knew that wasn't going to happen. And so I was hoping to be able to be chairman, not for whatever reasons, vice chairman, I'm sorry, thank you, keeping me honest there. But that wasn't to be. So I think that we have spent too much time talking about inside baseball at this table, because the true work that we do is the vote on the budget, is the student achievement goals. And the chair and the vice chair of this board have no more power than any of us. The will of the board is what gets done. So I don't know if we have any more speakers, but I would love to call the question and let us get to the vote.
Ms. Evans and then Ms. Reed.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to say how honored and pleased I am to have been nominated for this very important position. I appreciate the conversations that I've had with all of you over the past several weeks, particularly about what is expected about the role of the chair and the vice chair, and what each of us expects in that role. My view of what the chair and the vice chair do is that there are three functions, basically. We organize ourselves as a board. That's one function. We keep all board members equally informed. And we also try to bring the board together as a team. I think those are the three functions of chair and vice chair. I do believe I have the skill set to do all three of those things. And I do appreciate that everybody on this board has given me due consideration, particularly in the lengthy conversations that I have had about this issue. I realize that it's difficult. It's difficult when we do this, and I think it's important that we find common ground, particularly when we're wrestling with some contentious issues, and we are bound to disagree. I want to say I have a great deal of respect for everyone on this board, each and every person on this board. This is a group of very smart and hardworking people. You don't see people missing meetings. You don't see people not returning phone calls. And so I do want to make clear that regardless of how you vote tonight, I do have a great deal of respect for everyone. And I understand that people have done some soul searching on what they want to have happen with this leadership. So I do think that the future of this board and our ability to work together as a team of 13, the 12 of us, and our superintendent is critical. And so I appreciate you giving me the consideration that I have asked for, and whoever is approved tonight, I will pledge to work as hard as I can to make for a successful board. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Thank you, Chairman Derenak Koufax.
Thank you.
I very much am supporting Ms. Evans. I've known Ms. Evans about 20 years, and she has always been a person of integrity, and you always know where she's coming from, even if you don't agree, and we often don't agree. But she's always been honest and respectful and professional, and so for those reasons, I think she would be a good vice chair, but there are other things too. As I look at the roles, and it's good that I'm following you, Ms. Evans, for people in the audience, what is the importance of the chair and vice chair? Aren't they just two positions? Well, no, at least on this board, those are two very powerful positions. What do? They make appointments to standing committees and the ad hoc committees. They attend chairman's meeting, and we get a summary of a couple bullets usually. They help run the meetings to keep us focused and to keep us using our time efficiently. So the role is very, very important, both of the chair and vice chair. This actually is beginning to sound like high school, because I feel like you just can't help but go there with it. It's descended into that. And anyone who says it isn't, I would beg to differ. It is about personalities. It is about choosing sides. And it's very unfortunate, and it's very unprofessional of this board. Ms. Evans has more experience than the other candidate, who I also respect very much. And so this is not, and he and I have chatted, this is not about him. I'm trying to keep it about the process and about the message that we're sending. To me, if I'm relatively new, we used to say, oh, there were 6 newbies on the board. Well, you're not as new, but you're still relatively new compared to the rest of us. So if the chair is relatively new, wouldn't you want someone who is relatively more experienced next to you? And if you wouldn't, why not? I thought that would be something that would be important. And last but not least, Ms. Evans has the time to devote to attending the meetings, to communicating and over-communicating with all 12 of us. And the other candidate, as we all know, has a full-time job. It's relevant. So for all those reasons, I'm going to be supporting Ms. Evans for vice chair.
Any other comments? I will make a, Mr. McElveen.
I would just say that whether or not someone on this board has a full-time job is not relevant.
Thank you. I will say this. As Ms. Reed just pointed out, this is not our, well, she said this is high school, and we're supposed to be managing the high schools, and we are not supposed to be acting like the students within them. But we are passionate, as I said, and what happens up here is sometimes we do try to make sausage in the back rather than the front, but today it's happening all around. What I want the public to know is that though even there may be varying levels of discord right now, but I have talked to my colleagues. I have talked to several people, particularly in this race, as we're talking, so I'll speak to the motion on the table, Ms. Evans and Mr. Valkoff, expressing that this wasn't a perfect process. But I do want to share what Ms. Evans had spoken to me earlier and told me she was going to abstain from my, her vote for me. She said and she said something nice, and she said it's, you know, and we'll work together as we move forward. And we gave each other a hug, and she said, and we're going to give each other more hugs. So even though that's what you're seeing up here in words, it's not necessarily where we are in our hearts. And as we move forward, as Ms. Hines said, we are elected officials, we are politicians in some ways, and we are a competitive lot. And when that happens and there's an election, there are winners and there are not losers, but there are those who do not come in first place. And but either way, I think as we go forward and cast this vote, whoever wins, we have two excellent candidates who will both, I look forward to working with one as the vice chair, and I look forward to working with the second one to whatever abilities and desires that individual has as we move forward. And I know I have good, solid teammates in both of them. So now, there are two nominations for vice chair of the school board, Sandy Evans and Ted Valkoff. The candidate who receives the majority of the votes from this board member's presence and voting will be declared the vice chairman, and I will call for the votes in the order of the nomination. So all of those in favor of the motion to elect Sandy Evans as vice chair of the Fairfax County School Board signify by raising your hands and saying aye. Aye. That's Ms. Evans, Ms. Schultz, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Reed, and Mr. Stork. All of those in favor of the motion to elect Ted Valkoff as chairman of the Fairfax County School Board, to elect Ted Valkoff as vice chairman of the Fairfax County School Board, signify by raising your hand and saying aye. 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 Ms. Strauss, Mr. McElveen, Ms. Smith, Ms. Derenak Koufax, Mr. Moon, Ms. Hines, and Mr. Valkoff. There are no abstentions. There were 5 votes for Sandy Evans and 7 votes for Ted Valkoff. At this time, I am pleased to introduce the Vice Chair of the Fairfax County School Board, Mr. Ted Valkoff.
I thank you all for your support, and I'm well aware of, obviously, the discomfort that we're all feeling about the way this has come about, and I wish it had not come that way, but I own this decision, and I am doing this because I believe this will be in the best interest of the school system. Ms. Evans, I do appreciate your description of the duties of the vice chairman, and it is my intent to follow through on those 3 things that you outlined. I'd like to actually think in terms of when I look back a year from now, what will I have seen? And I want to look back and see that in my role here as vice chairman, that I've helped to bring some balance and have tried to build bridges to represent fairly the views of everybody that's on the board, and to offer my best advice to the chairman and to the superintendent, and to communicate fairly and equally to everyone. I also hope that I'll look back a year from now and see that our school system continued to focus by adopting a strategic plan, and that we set these people free who Dr. Garza has reorganized so that they can go out and support the work that's going on in the schools. And then finally, I want to look back and see that our board has been willing to embrace change, to examine new ways of doing business. And also, I hope that we look back and see that the accomplishments that we have made in the year are equal to or even greater than the ones that we have just accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velkoff, and Ms. Strauss would like to speak.
First, I would like to thank Mr. Moon for your many years of service and your 2 years as chairman and then a year before as vice chairman. It is a tremendous amount of work and a lot of worry, and I know you will sleep much better tonight. I've been in your shoes. So thank you very much for sacrificing years of your life, and you will deserve a little bit of rest as you pass the torch on to Ms. Darren Koufax and to Mr. Velkoff. I want to thank those who put their names in the hat. Ms. Evans, thank you for coming forward. Democracy only works when those people raise their hand and volunteer. And thank you, Mrs. Smith. And the two of you worked hard to see if we could get to an impasse. I've been part of a 6-6 and lost. Mr. Stork and I shared an interesting election some years ago, and we were at an impasse. And I have gone through this process 21 times. Rarely is it easy. And I think, as everybody has acknowledged, it is trying to make these choices are always a little bit challenging, but we get past them. So thank you all very much for participating. And I'm sure we will move on, and we all understand how important it is that everybody has their say, shares their opinion, and we go on. So congratulations to everyone. Good luck. Ms. Darren Koufax, you will be the one now who will get no sleep as you worry about how well we're going to go on and go forward. And thank you, Mr. Moon, for your years of service.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. It is the recommendation that the school board authorize organizational arrangements and appointments as follows. Number 1, designate the following as regular business dates: July 24th, September 4th and 18th, October 9th and 23rd, November 6th and 17th, which is a Monday, December 4th and 18th, 2014, and January 8th and 22nd, February 5th and 19th, March 5th and 26th, April 9th and the 23rd, May 7th and the 21st, June 11th and the 25th, and July 9th and the 23rd, 2015. Regular business meetings are typically held on Thursdays. Special meetings, board committee work sessions, and other special functions will also be scheduled. Committees of 3 board members hear student disciplinary cases in closed meetings, typically on Tuesdays. The board does not meet in August. The board's calendar of meeting dates will be based on the school year and will be initially set and published in July. Number 2, set the salary of school board members at $20,000 per year and that the board chair at $22,000, and reimburse for local mileage at the federal mileage level rate for official school board business travel. Number 3, compensate the student representative for attendance at public meetings not to exceed $50 per day, and reimburse for local mileage at the federal mileage reimbursement rate for official school board business travel. Approve Stephen Lockhart, Deputy Superintendent, effective August 1st, 2014, to serve as the superintendent's designee to attend any meeting of the school board that the superintendent cannot attend. Number 5, appoint Pamela Goddard as Executive Assistant and Clerk of the School Board. Number 6, appoint Yvette Rhodes and Lizette Torres-Bertel as Deputy Clerks of the School Board. Appoint Tina Robinson and Joseph Wellborn as Deputy Clerks of the School Board for limited purpose of signing titles to school board vehicles. And appoint Arnold Dunbar, Catherine Barnes, Mahmoud Sheikh, Mary J. Thomas, and Roger A. Pearson as Deputy Clerks of the School Board for the limited purpose of countersigning payment warrants. Number 8, appoint Monique Remy, Doug Campbell, Shaquille Yusuf, Jerome Wilhelm, and Mir Zipovitz as agents of the school board to examine, approve, and order payment of financial obligations of the school board, and appoint Kristen Fang, Heidi Wilson, Michelle Bremen, Dennis Shelton, Alexandria Stevens, Dalila Kalafi, excuse my pronunciations for some of your names, John Lako as deputy agents of the school board to perform these functions in the absence of agents. Appoint Shaquille Yusuf as agent of the school board to approve disbursements made from all petty cash funds. Number 10, appoint Michael Lunter as an agent to examine, approve, and order payment in connection with the Educational Employee Supplementary Retirement System of Fairfax County, ERFC only, and appoint Allison Kelly, Adolfo Cespedes, Kevin McCarty, and Helen Shiflett as deputy agents to perform those functions in the absence of Mr. Lunter. Number 11, authorize the chairman and clerk to sign all legal documents for the board, other than those requiring the signature of some officer, and authorize the vice chairman to sign in the absence of the chairman and the deputy clerks in the absence of the clerk. 12, authorize Stephen Lockhart, Deputy Superintendent, effective August 1st, 2014, and Susan Quinn, Chief Operating Officer, to execute official documents relating to state, federal, and impact aid requiring the superintendent's signature. Number 13, authorize Stephen Lockhart, Deputy Superintendent, effective August 1st, 2014, and Susan Quinn, Chief Operating Officer, to execute official documents relating to the Virginia Department of Education's reports, documents, requisitions, and other official correspondence in the absence of the Division Superintendent, effective July 2015. 14, retain the following outside firms as assigned and managed by the Office of Division Counsel: the firm of Hunton & Williams to provide general legal counsel and litigation services, the firm of Blankenship and Keith to provide general and special education advice and litigation services, and the firm of Littler Mendelsohn to provide workers' compensation services. And 15, organize liaisons and committees to support board's work. Is there a motion for this? Mr. Moon, seconded by Mr. Valkov. All in favor? The vote is unanimous. Thank you. With Ms. Hines absent from the table, and I just wanted to announce that Ms. Hines is driving to South Carolina tonight, and that is why she has left at this point in time. The next order of business is citizen participation. Fairfax County citizens who wish to address the school board should arrange to be placed on the speakers list by signing up online at www.fcps.edu or by calling the school board office at 571-423-1075. If the concern is a group concern, please consider appointing a spokesperson, and while the spokesperson is speaking, those in support may stand to show their support. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as capital improvement program budget and boundaries, or personal attacks on any person. Complaints regarding individual students or school-based employees should not be raised at public meetings. Any such concern should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. Citizens are encouraged to write the school board on any school-related topic. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 3 minutes and provide at least 16 copies of their presentation for distribution to the board. Tonight, the first 3 citizens that have signed up to the board there are 5, and the first one is Anjali Kalhan, followed by Sanjay Ranvelwala. Mr. Kalhan or Ms. Kalhan? No. And Mr. Ranvelwala? No. Next, I have Mr. George Becerra.
Good evening, everyone. Going to continue comments from last time around. First of all, Happy New Year. I don't see a lot of smiley faces over there, but I can understand. First thing I want to talk about is, or A lot of people ask me what my interests will be after, I'm freelancing now. And one of the things I'd like to focus on is, with a new reorganization, is the program evaluation and strategic plan. Luckily, that falls under Mr. Smith, so I know he has a big chore at hand. So it's one thing, for program evaluations, we have a research office, which I feel you evaluate stuff. It's, to some extent, it's reactive. I need a little bit progressive, forward-thinking, what's in the future, let's get ahead of the curve. Other things is what I see from the Q out of the program evaluations, 10 or 12 things that come up every year. And however that's determined, I guess there's some management to that. But let's try to get more than those 10 to 12. Let's even get maybe 20, 25 with small mini evaluations throughout, because you have a lot of programs to evaluate. Also with program evaluation, what I've seen with the presentations is who are they talking to? Are they talking to evaluate staff? I hope they're talking to the school board to how is this a policy change, maybe on implications or fiscal management changes. Because that's what I look as a program evaluation shop, is what is working, what can we change. And in terms of where it should be, how do we using program evaluation? To me, I see it at ISD or the old ISD academic office now with Dr. Dockery, is you're just using them as technical assistants. There's some talented people there. So maybe outreach. Another thing, just found out today, the NAACP Fairfax branch wanted me to start collaborating with Dr. Garza and having a town hall meeting where they invite Dr. Garza, school board members, state delegates, state senators, and Dr. Garza, early indications that she'll be free in the fall for this after the strategic plan is announced, or the education summit. Also, another thing they wanted me to convey is that they'll be outreaching to Ms. Darren at Kofax for a meeting, and you've met a lot of them already, but just a formal introduction and congratulatory things. And this is the hard part, ma'am. As your new role, there's going to be some negativity or some critiques. One thing is coming up. You guys have to be unified on your retreat coming up, on your strategic plan. I need all 12 of y'all working together. Same things, July 25th. You guys are going to meet with Superintendent Staples and Christian Bollock, Virginia Board. You guys didn't do a good job when you guys met with Secretary Holton. You guys started bickering, and I don't need that as a community when you're representing Fairfax to a state official who made important decisions. So please come that together. Even if you don't smile, we'll come there together. Other things is, I'm interested in what board members are coming back. Election time coming around, who's going to be supervisor? Who's going to run for supervisor? Who's going to be primaried? Last but not least, congratulations to Mr. Lateef. It's hard work, I know it's a lot. Just two small things. You represent 185,000 kids. Please focus in on elementary and junior high, just not high school. And one last thing is appointments for SAC members to advisory committees. Don't just stay specific for SAC members. There are also students who are not SAC members who are very interested in being part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becerra. Next, Amin El-Dali. And Mr. Dolly will be followed by Elizabeth Endy.
Good evening, board members. My name is Amin Al-Dali, and I'm a 10th grader at Langley High School. I'm here today to express my viewpoint on the extremely early start times currently in use in Fairfax County, and my plea for action to be taken regarding this pressing issue. On a day-to-day basis, I wake up at 5:30 and stay awake until around 11 p.m. My typical day at school consists of 1.5 hour long classes in which I am barely able to stay awake. It's hard for me to focus in class on the material we are learning. After a long and exhausting day at school, I usually have some sort of after-school activity every single day of the week. Whether it is debating foreign affairs with my Model UN team or having 2-hour-long track and soccer practices, I don't get home until around 5 every day. The remainder of my evening consists of a quick dinner break, followed by homework until around 11 every night. My lack of sleep has a direct toll on my education and athletics. I can clearly feel the difference between getting a good amount of sleep compared to being drowsy during the school day and not being able to focus. To reiterate, this is a 17.5-hour day that consists of schoolwork, then sports, then more schoolwork. Compared to the average adult schedule, high school students get 2.5 hours less of sleep. To have an adolescent whose brain is still developing sleep significantly less than an adult is outrageous and must be addressed in order to ensure children are able to perform efficiently at school. There are also some aspects of the sleeping issue that are causing students to be placed in dangerous situations. For example, some studies show that driving with lack of sleep has similar, if not worse, effects as driving while intoxicated. Students are more prone to car crashes and pedestrian accidents during the early morning hours when the sun has not yet risen. There has also been a major issue that has emerged in high schools concerning drug abuse for lack of sleep issues. More and more students have begun to abuse drugs such as Adderall and Vyvanse to keep them awake during class so they can learn. Depression is also a result of lack of sleep with many students, and there are a significant number of adolescents in high schools who abuse drugs and alcohol more frequently to attempt to combat their lack of enthusiasm and to entertain themselves. By adjusting school start times, many of the aforementioned issues can be resolved. It has been proven that grades, academics, and athletics all improved in students who start school after 8 a.m. And the number of car crashes, tardies, and cases of substance abuse and depression have all significantly decreased with later start times. To close, I respectfully ask the school board to consider the details presented here and adjust the high school start times by September of 2015. I also believe that it would be beneficial to set aside a small amount of one-time funds to collect baseline data during the 2014-2015 school year to make it possible for researchers to study the outcomes after the change in start times has been implemented. Thank you for your time and your much-needed consideration.
Miss Elizabeth Endy?
Can I just say, that was an impressive speech for a 10th grader.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you so much.
impressive that you came in a suit and everything else. Way to go. Way to bring it.
Hello, school board members, Dr. Garza, and our newest student member, Harris Latif. Congratulations to you on this role. It's very impressive that you've stepped up to do that and represent your fellow students. And it's very impressive, I agree with Ms. Schultz, that Amin is an excellent speaker, and it makes me so happy when I see students so successful in conveying their thoughts, and you as a school board know that your job in helping educate these students and providing a good environment for them is such an important thing, and I want to thank you for that. And thank you for all the time that you put into these this is a difficult job, and we as a community really appreciate all your help. I also wanted to, as part of the leadership team of the sleep effort, I also am here to talk about later start times, and just wanted to quickly draw your attention to an editorial in the Connection newspaper. It's a two-sided article in case you didn't see both sides, but I thought it was an excellent article that I'm gonna just read the title. Hooray for full day Mondays, hoping that later start times for high schoolers follow quickly. This is an editorial that ran in the Connection newspaper on July 9th. As I said, it gave you kudos for the work you've done on the full day Monday. That's very impressive that you were able to get that through and to be ready to do it in the fall. And we look forward to the work that you're doing on later high school start times. It's been a long time, this project. It's a difficult project, but the reward will really be there for the students and for you. I think you will be so pleased when you implement this later start times for our student. It's such an important thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are either our first and second speakers, Anjali Chuahan or Sanja Ranvenwala? All right. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We do appreciate it. The next item is Student Representative Matters. And welcome, Mr. Latif.
Thank you very much. Before I begin, I just want to say, Amin, thank you so much for coming, because first of all, having students voice their opinion to the board is, one, the reason I'm here, and 2, very important for the success and future success of Fairfax County Public Schools. Plus, it does not hurt to have a fellow Saxon in the audience on my first day. Thank you. So, Chairman Darren Colfax, Dr. Garza, members of the school board, I'm honored to be joining the board as the 44th student representative, especially during a time when FCPS is undergoing so many changes and facing so many challenges. Since my election this past February, I've learned more about the issues our school system face, and I've witnessed firsthand how members of our community have expressed varied opinions on how we should go about addressing those issues. From the adjustments that were needed to pass the 2015 budget to the very recent change to the master calendar, my little brother does have some objections. He's a 6th grader. I think it's a great idea. He enjoyed coming home early on Mondays, but we have to give up just a little for the good of the majority. To the updated student rights and responsibilities, the past few months have been eventful to say the least. As I look to the next year, I see the upcoming debate regarding later high school start times, as we heard today. I see a changing focus on student mental health and wellness. I see the 2016 fiscal year budget. All those are looming issues. As for me, I have high hopes for this year. I plan to visit 1 high or secondary school in each of the 5 new administrative regions in the county per school quarter. I encourage students who have questions or suggestions for me or if they have an opinion to share with me, please come to one of those meetings. I am eager to hear from you. And if you cannot make it, please just send me an email, hnlateef@fcps.edu. I'll be posting a newsletter shortly after every normally scheduled board meeting. It'll include my remarks along with any news that I think students would benefit from learning about. It'll also have any information on any upcoming visits or changes to my schedule. Before I finish, I'd like to take a moment to thank the members of the 2013-2014 Student Advisory Council who elected me some 5 months ago. I'd like to thank my family, many of whom are here tonight, hi, and my friends who have been so supportive, my teachers who have been so willing to express their opinions on school board matters. Talk to any Fairfax County school teacher, they will have just an ample amount of advice, and I really do appreciate it from them. I'd like to thank my college and career counselor at Langley, Mrs. Hannah Wolf, my principal, Mr. Matt Ragone, our director of student services, Ms. Sonia Williams, and my senior class assistant principal, Ms. Jessica Statz. I'd like to thank Ms. Goddard, Ms. Torres Barthol, Ms. Rhodes, along with my executive administrative assistant, Ms. Mary Ellen Hook, for being very helpful over the past few months and getting me ready to take on this new position. And lastly, I would really like to thank my predecessor, Will Ash, who I hope is out there tonight listening, who has given me much appreciated advice these past few months on how to be an effective representative, and I really do thank you for that, Will. I'm honored to represent my over 186,000 peers, and I hope to make constructive contributions on their behalf over the next 12 months. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lateef. We look forward to working with you. And to the parents and family of Mr. Lateef, I bet you are bursting back there with pride. So congratulations. Enjoy this moment. And we look forward to working with you all as well during the coming year. And Ms. Schultz.
I just want to welcome you, Mr. Lateef. It was such a pleasure and an honor. I think that Ms. McLaughlin and I were the first school board members to ever attend a student election, a student rep election, and it was such a pleasure to be there and watch the process, which I think was much better than our process tonight. So kudos to the students. And to have watched you all the way through the process, through each round, it became more and more and more clear to me that you were going to be such a value add. And so it seems like so long from February to you're finally here. I don't know what we can do for that or what could be done for that, because you must have been, laying in wait. I didn't realize that Mr. Ash was a lame duck student rep for so long. But welcome to the board. It was great to see you ascend originally in February, and I'm glad that you're finally here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to student confirmation of action taken in a closed meeting. This is the portion of the meeting where the board will confirm any action regarding issues that were discussed in the closed meeting. These issues may include action taken regarding student disciplinary matters Board members have discussed each individual case, and at this time we'll make some motions to confirm the recommended action. I call on Ms. Strauss to make the first motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move to deny the school reassignment appeal for a student who was charged with a crime in the community and to confirm the disciplinary action decision of the division superintendent.
Second.
All those in favor? Ms. Strauss, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Evans, Ms. Schultz, Mr. McElveen, Ms. Smith, Ms. Derenak-Kofax, Mr. Moon, Ms. Reed, Mr. Valkoff, and Mr. Stork. Opposed? Abstaining? Ms. McLaughlin. Thank you. The motion passes. Next, we have committee reports, and I call on Mr. Moon to make the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I served as the chairman of a 3-member hearing committee along with Mrs. Reed and Mr. Valkoff, and I moved to expel a student for possession of an illegal drug at school and distribution of an illegal drug to 2 students while the students were traveling to school. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we move on to the consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of these items listed under the consent agenda have gone through board committee review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the beginning of our meeting. 5.01, approve the minutes of the June 26, 2014 regular school board meeting. 5.02, policy 3202 has been withdrawn. 5.03, adopt policy 5710, property and casual coverage and bonds is detailed in the agenda item. Item 5.04, appoint individuals to serve for a 1-year term ending June 30th, 2015 on the Adult and Community Education Advanced Academic Programs, Career and Technical Education, Human Relations, Minority Student Achievement Oversight, School Health, and Students with Disabilities Advisory Committees as listed in the agenda item. 5.05, approve the reappointment of Susan Quinn and the appointment of Stephen Lockhart to the ERFC Board of Trustees for 1-year term beginning July 1st, 2014 and August 1st, 2014 respectively, and ending June 30th, 2015. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda? Hearing and seeing no objection, the consent agenda is approved. Next, we move on to new business. And if you will bear with me as my computer loads. The following are new business items. There will not be a vote on these items tonight, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. 6.01, approve the revenue and expenditure adjustments as detailed in agenda item, in the agenda item, and Dr. Garza, can you speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. I'm excited tonight to introduce to you Susan Quinn. She is going to present the fiscal year 14 final budget review. I know that I'm excited about the future of the school system. We have so many great things that are ahead for us, but with that we still have daunting financial challenges. You all have experienced those for a number of years, and the future we will continue to have those same daunting challenges around how do we continue to sustain the great schools that our community values, that we value and support and love. And so Susan's going to present tonight our final year-end balance and where we are. We are reflecting some of the information in a little bit different ways. And the reason we're doing that is we continue to listen. We want to be as transparent as possible. We want to reflect the budget. You know, we know that it's $2.5 billion annual budget. It's very complex. And I know I speak on behalf of Susan Quinn and her team in that we stand ready to do everything in our power to make sure that our community is well informed about our budget and that we are transparent as we possibly can. We do have significant work ahead, and a big piece of that will be about how we involve the community, how we communicate our financial state as a school system. So now I'll turn it over to Ms. Quinn and allow her to walk you through this document.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. And as Dr. Garza mentioned, this is the final 2014 budget review. So I will be sharing with you the actual experiences that we've had this past fiscal year, and this will also be the first time that we will be modifying the budget for FY 2015. And then, as always, this agenda item is subject to the annual external audit, which is scheduled to be completed by October, and any adjustments reflected from the audit will be shared with you during the mid-year budget review. So in summary, good news, all 10 funds did end the year with positive balances. You know, we've had years where we've had some difficulties in 1 or 2 funds, but this was a good year for us. And as for the school operating fund, it did end the year with available ending balance of $38.2 million after carryover and some other commitments. I apologize because the screen's moving up and down. I'm just kind of giving you a summary at first. I'm going to go through the detail of the agenda in a little bit. So of the $38.2 million, we are recommending some identified adjustments of $15.1 million, which includes the cost of the full day Mondays for 2015, which I will go over in a little bit detail in detail a little bit later, and the remaining $23.1 million to be set aside as the budgeted beginning balance for FY 2016. So as I mentioned, and I kind of broke my summary, so just to reiterate, available ending balance of $38.2 million, $15 million will be used in 2015, with the remaining $23 million to be set aside for 2016. So as Dr. Garza mentioned, we did narrate this agenda a little differently, so it does reflect additional information where you see the flow of funds from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year. We used to just narrate the identified needs, but this will actually show the commitments and undelivered orders flowing from end of 2014 into 2015 and the reappropriation of those dollars. So to go over it in detail, on top of page 1, perfect, thank you. Our actual revenues, this is as compared to our third quarter budget review for 2014. Our sales tax, we're projecting a slight decrease from what we have projected for 2014. Our June sales tax really doesn't come in until middle of July, so we should know in the next day or two what our actual receipts are, and any adjustments will be reflected during the mid-year budget review. The state revenue, net increase of about $500,000, and this is basically based on final calculations from the state. This is an offset from a reduction in our ESOL funding because our ESOL student count was actually a little bit lower than what we had projected at the state level. And then for the federal revenue, the bulk of the unrecognized revenue is due to the multi-year grants, the IDEA special education grant that represents $8.7 million of the $10 million. And then we had a decrease in our impact aid of $1.3 million, as well as a slight decrease in our E-rate of $200,000. And then in our other category, we are recognizing an additional $2.3 million. We had other revenues of $2.8 million, but that is offset by a $500,000 reduction in our tuition for Fairfax City schools. So the actual revenues are 99.7% of what we projected, resulting in a shortfall of the $7.5 million. That's how we're ending the 2014 year in the revenue category. Now, as for the expenditures under item 2, our total expenditures are $37 million below what was projected after accounting for undelivered orders, department carryovers, school carryover, and we did have to use approximately $700,000 to meet the requirement in 2015 as a result of the final state numbers that we received in June, and I will go over that in detail. So what makes up the $37 million? On the following page, you could see that it represents approximately 1.5% of our revised budget, $30.5 million from our compensation accounts, $2.5 million from our utilities accounts, as well as our fuel accounts, and our other accounts represent $1.5 million in savings. So of the compensation accounts, that is approximately 1.4% of our entire compensation budget. We had higher vacancy rates than we did in 2013. We also had some savings in our health benefits accounts as a result of the shift in our participation. And that shift in the participation, we recognized in 2015 budget as well as savings into the 2015 budget. And then the unspent grant funding of $8.7 million. This is the corresponding entry from the revenue side where, because we did not spend the $8.7 million, we did not realize the $8.7 million in revenues. So the total of actual expenditure variance is $45.7 million. And when you add that to the shortfall of the $7.5 million in our revenue accounts, the funds available at the end of the year is the $38.2 million. This is compared to the $55 million we had last year at this time. So we are significantly lower than what we had at the end of the fiscal year in 2013. Okay? So the next sections of the agenda kind of now talks about the changes into 2015.
Susan, before you go on,
yes.
if you would comment on that, hasn't that not been anticipated, and has that been a trend?
We've actually, you know,
in terms of a lower,
yes,
lower ending balance over time.
Lower ending balance, we knew it was going to be lower in 14. We anticipate that it's going to be lower in 15 as well, because as we build our budgets, if you recall, we have tightened what we called our salary file on how we project vacancies, recognizing additional savings as we're building the budget. So we do anticipate that this available balance will continue to go down. Okay? So under section 3, now we're talking about the revenue and beginning balance adjustments in 2015. So now I just shared with you what happened in 2014. So the first adjustment is something new that you see in this particular agenda. This is all the undelivered orders. Those are purchases that are in the pipeline that we haven't received goods for. So we can't recognize them as expenditures, but we have to bring them forward into 2015. So we have to bring the funds over to 2015, which increases our beginning balance, and you're gonna see the corresponding appropriations on the expenditure side in order for us to spend the funds for those outstanding POs. The items that you have not seen in this beginning balance is the last bullet under identified needs of $15.1 million. This is the new spending recommendations for 2015, which I will detail in another page or so. And then item B is your future year beginning balance. I talked about funds being available at 23.1. Again, we have to flow the funds through 2015 as beginning balance, and then at the end of 2015, you'll see that it's available for a budgeted beginning balance for 2016. Okay? And then just to kind of put that in perspective as well, the $23.1 million, last year at this time, we were able to set aside $45 million for 2015. So We are about 50% of what we set aside last year for 2015 going into 2016. On page 3, if I forget, the check mark and the X's on the most left part of the page for each item represents whether or not that particular line item is a recurring transaction or it's a one-time adjustment into that particular fiscal year. So for state aid, the total impact of the state budget was $1.7 million to FCPS. However, that is the net of the revenue adjustment as well as some of the lower rates on the expenditure side. So since I am detailing the revenue adjustments, I have to show that we are actually lowering our revenue projections by $4.4 million as a result of the state budget that was adopted in June. And that will be a recurring adjustment. And then again, the unspent federal IDEA grant. Those funds also need to flow back into 15 as additional revenue, and then you're going to see that exact same amount under the expenditure side, which shows the appropriation authority of $8.7 million. So the total revenue and beginning balance adjustments, $107 million. And under item 4, I'm going to start to talk about the expenditure adjustments in 2015. I've already mentioned the first item, reappropriation of the IDEA grant. Item B, again, is the reappropriation of the commitments and in carryover from 2014. And then on next page, item C. This is where we start to see new identified needs, new requirements for 2015. So first item, elementary full day Mondays. This is what the board approved on June 26 at a cost of $7.6 million. And the final number for the positions that will be allocated will be recognized during the mid-year budget review in December. Item D, we're recommending spending $2.4 million to purchase additional buses. This funding is coming from the savings that we recognize in the transportation accounts in 2014. This is one-time purchase, and it should also help us reduce some potential future costs related to implementing later high school start times at a cost of $2.4 million. And then item E is the recurring portion of the adjustment based on the state budget. They did lower the health retiree care credit rate as well as the group life insurance rate, saving us $2.7 million. And then item F, also recurring, is the net savings of our reorganization that just went into effect July 1. That provides savings of more than $600,000 and elimination of 5 positions. Okay? And then on top of page 5, we had a slight adjustment related to our special education programs, and this was the result of the review for the adult high school program. And then item H is the reappropriation of the $8 million flexibility reserve. This is a one-time flexibility reserve that we carry over from year to year. I believe there was a question on whether or not this $8 million was in our baseline. $8 million is not in the baseline, it's just a carryover from year to year. So total expenditure adjustments of $79.3 million is recommended. And then we also have what we call transfer out adjustments. Some of our spending, if it's happening within the school operating fund, those are expenditures. Some of our spending that happens in another fund, we have to actually transfer the funds into those other funds. So the first item is the Joint Board of Supervisors and School Board Synthetic Turf Initiative. This provides for the second installment of that initiative. So we're recommending a $1.5 million transfer to the construction fund for this particular initiative. And the good news is after this commitment, we were going to have an additional $3 million commitment. But because of the proffer funding that was coming into the system, the county is projecting that our next commitment will be less than $500,000. So it would be a total of less than $500,000 as compared to the original $3 million that would have been outstanding after the second installment. Okay. On page 6, the next recommended adjustment is transferring $3.6 million for major maintenance. And if you recall, during the FY 2014 approved budget deliberations, we eliminated $3.6 million from major maintenance and committed to using year-end available balances to be able to fund the requirements of major maintenance. And this just continues that commitment to use year-end balances for our major maintenance projects. And then the last item is an additional savings from the refunding bonds for the Gatehouse Administration Center. Originally, we were estimating $300,000 worth of recurring savings. That is still in place, but once the refunding was finalized, we were able to recognize an additional $300,000 worth one-time savings in 2015. So total transfer out adjustments of $4.7 million, and giving you a grand total of almost $84 million in your disbursement adjustments, which is your expenditures and your transfers out, leaving us with funds available at that $23.1 million. Okay, so all of that, in summary, is the bottom half of your page 6. So actual revenue variance, $7.5 million, expenditure variance of $45.7 million, giving us total funds available of $38.2 million. Spending $15.1 million on the recommended identified needs, leaving us with available balance for 2016, beginning balance at $23.1 million. Okay? Now, just a quick glimpse into 2016 is the next page, page 7. We are going to be providing a comprehensive fiscal forecast in September. So as I said, this is very preliminary, but wanted to share with you where we were when we adopted the budget in 2015 versus where we are today. So the first column of this chart should look familiar to you. This is what we shared with you when we adopted the 2015 budget. The second column is where we are today. And the biggest difference between those two points in time is state funding. We were projecting an additional $10 million. We are now projecting only an additional $5 million because as part of the budget, the state eliminated the teacher salary increases that were in the governor, House, and the Senate for 2016. So we are not going to see the additional salary increase for teachers in 2016. And for beginning balance, you see a reduction of $6.2 million. That's as a result of spending year-end balance for full-day Mondays. So we have to show that we don't have the additional 6.2. So revenue is projected to increase by $31.9 million if you add a 3% transfer increase that was provided as a guidance from the Board of Supervisors. On the expenditure side, the only difference between what we shared back in May and where we are today is the $7.6 million of recurring costs for full-day Mondays, giving us a preliminary shortfall of $58.3 million for 2016. And then obviously as we fine-tune our projections and provide a fiscal forecast in in September for 2016, we will be updating many of these numbers that are on this chart. So this was really just to give you a preliminary look into where we're headed for 2016.
You may have noticed too that it's important to note that we did include as a projection some placeholders there that would be a step increase in a market scale adjustment for employees. So I think that's important to note
Yes.
that that's still a placeholder for next year.
Yes.
Ms. Quinn, are you complete?
Actually, let me just, if I could have just 2 more minutes to kind of quickly go over the other funds. That kind of concludes the briefing for the school operating fund. But for all of our 9 other funds, we did end the year with, again, positive balances. And just to highlight some of the few significant items, our construction fund available ending balance of $74 million, but our CIP projections show that this balance will be depleted by FY 2016. And also reflected in the fund statement for the construction fund is the turf replacement reserve of $700,000. And then our food and nutrition services fund fared slightly better than what we projected, but we still needed to use $2.2 million of the reserve in FY 14. Our adult and community education fund, from the available balance at year end, we were able to meet the maintenance effort requirements for adult ESOL. And then the grants and self-supporting fund did perform as expected, and both of our self-insurance funds also had favorable outcomes. We did implement a new retiree subsidy for prescription drugs from the federal government, and that implementation actually brought in additional revenue to our health and flexible benefits fund, increasing our premium stabilization reserve in that particular fund. And then for our retirement fund, as well as our other post-employment benefits fund, these are the two trust funds. Again, good news, both funds had positive earnings, both experienced somewhere close to double digits or slightly over double digits. So I think that's good news for both of those funds. And then starting on page 12 are the detailed fund statements for each of our 10 funds. And then the last page summarizes our grant development activities for FY 2014. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. I have 3 board members who have questions. I will just remind everybody that we will be having this on our work session, our full-day work session on Monday. But Ms. Schultz, you have the first question.
I'm sorry, so my questions are on number 3. I'm trying to work, gosh, we have so much fun working backwards with these documents. On 3C, I guess that was the state funding, is that right?
Yes, page 3.
Okay, so what happened there? Because I noticed when you said that, you know, they've backed out the teacher salaries, but this is like a cost of compete?
Yes, they eliminated the cost of competing adjustments. So that's actually very significant.
And that was specific to Fairfax County, correct?
The northern regions.
Northern region,
yes.
Which is basically us.
Yes.
So this has put us in the hole, what, about $4.5 million. Thanks a lot, Virginia General Assembly. Appreciate that tremendously.
And actually, we lost significance since 2012. Back in 2012, we were getting $10 million for this adjustment from the state. Now we receive 0.
So my message to my colleagues is this needs to be elevated yet again when we talk about and keep strategic and focused our state legislative package. The next one I had a question on, and these are just top level questions, on 4B, that's a mighty chunk of change for $34.5 million in undelivered orders. Can you just give us like a top level of what an undelivered order to the tune of $34 million looks like?
Those are purchase orders in the system, and that's actually a decrease from last year. All of our commitments, our undelivered orders, critical needs, they've all come down from last year's numbers. But again, those are active purchase
generally,
orders.
are those services? I mean, what?
They could be goods, they could be services. It's something that we committed to receiving. We have yet to receive them by June 30, so we cannot recognize them as expenditures. So you could kind of see them as orders in the pipeline.
Okay, and then the last top level question I had was on 5, on the turf. It would have been helpful for me and certainly for the public on the where and when. And I know that, you know, maybe Ms. McLaughlin has information on that, but where does this $1.5 million go? To what schools or what areas of the county? Because that's a particularly a sensitive issue, because there were significant areas of the county that had no turf fields. So do we have any idea where this 1.5 million goes and when?
The 8 original schools that were supposed to be helped were, or are, Annandale, Edison, Hayfield, Mount Vernon, South County, Stewart, TJ, and West Potomac. And my understanding is that 3 of those schools should be completed by the end of summer 2014. I don't quite have the list of which schools, but I believe they're West Potomac and Mount Vernon High Schools.
Okay. For Monday, for the work session, if there's any ability to refine where this money goes and when and what the schedule is, because this was a sensitive issue on whether or not, you know, the school board committed money to this, and I think it's helpful that we attribute the where and when. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Strauss.
We'll be happy to get that to you by Monday. I think it's also important for public that might be listening is the county is also committed, as I understand it.
Yes.
Ms. Quinn, their portion as well.
And county's commitment is pending school board's commitment.
Ms. Strauss.
First of all, I appreciate the additional detail in the explanation of the ending balance and carryover, because that's often where we get the most number of citizen questions. So I appreciate the greater detail with that. I'm also pleased to see that we are going to buy some new buses as cash. That saves us money, so that because the lease purchase costs us money over time. And so I've always been of the mind that when we have the money to buy it cash, because then when we run into difficult times, which we seem to be in continuously, we are not obligated for a lease agreement or essentially a payment on the debt. I have more questions, but I'll ask that at the work session. But again, thank you for the detailed information. I think it helps the community as well. Thanks.
Mr. Stork.
One of the issues that kind of we discuss always every year is the carryover from the prior year. And I noticed that you had for the 2016 a reduction in the carryover from the expectation for 2015. Did I understand that correctly? And that's part of your, if you will, shortfall, beginning balance shortfall?
Right, so when we balanced the 2015 budget, we used approximately $49.2 million, and that includes the $700,000 that we needed to add at the end of 2014 because of the state revenue shortfall and adjustment. So 2015 used $49.2 million worth of one-time beginning balance funds to balance the budget. In 2016, so far, we have only set aside $23.1 million. So that $26.2 million shown on page 7 is the difference of that $49.2 and what we've set aside. So we're actually expecting less of the one-time funding available to balance the 2016 budget.
Does that include the $8 million that's standardly?
No, it does not. So what's reflected when we build the budget is strictly baseline requirements. And because the $8 million is one-time funding, it's not built into the 2016. So it could be available if you decide to use the $8 million for beginning balance, but you could use it for just that one time, and then the $8 million reserve will be gone.
And then on the turf field issue, and I know we'll have more time to discuss this, but I at least want to put this on the record and get at least a response for the work session. My understanding is that we have always, at least in the Mount Vernon district, looked to utilize funds from proffers to help to support that. And that is, I guess in essence, it's school money because the proffers are for school enrollment growth, but it's coming from the county. Is that considered county and or school money? Do you know? And I know that that's that whole issue. We'll want to understand that, particularly in relation to refilling the fund and being able to support the other schools that are in the pipeline still.
I think currently it's being interpreted as the proffer money is supporting the turf initiative. So the additional proffer funding that came in to Lee, and I believe, is it Mount Vernon districts? That's what's helping mitigate the next 2 years worth of commitment. That was the $3 million, but because of those proffer funding is coming in to help with turf, the remaining balance for the schools or the Board of Supervisors is going down. So rather than a $3 million commitment after this year, the commitment from each side will be less than $500,000. That's the current projection.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mr. McElveen.
I just wanted to make a quick clarification or quick addendum to what Ms. Schultz had asked about the approved budgets by the state. What happened when there was the big debate over Medicaid, they reverted back to the McDonald budget, which didn't, instead of the House budget or the Senate budget, which actually had the most funding for us. And so that's why we lost those things that Governor McAuliffe had proposed, like the teacher funding and whatnot.
Or had not included in his original budget. So any amendments or adjustments that were made during the General Assembly session all had to be removed.
Ms. McLaughlin.
I just wanted to kind of reinforce what Ms. Quinn was talking about with the turf fund. So my colleagues may remember originally we thought it was going to be a 3-year commitment by both boards, where it was 1.5 for 3 consecutive years. So in the end, we would have brought forward 4.5 million and they would have. Because, as she noted, that the proffer money has helped bring down the overall expenses for those 8 fields, then the good news is that we are still being able to bring, especially for 5 out of those 8 communities that were high need, we're going to be able to have equity for our communities as well as for the schools. The synthetic turf fields that help with physical education as well as athletics and community, adult and children recreation. So I think Mr. Plattenberg can always comment as well, but I think from talking to the county side, obviously we're all very excited that instead of needing to get 9 million between the 2 boards, we're going to be closer to that 6 to 7 million of the joint commitment. And I'll reiterate again that in talking to the county side, they have very much appreciated this model of us saying, let's have a shared commitment here, a shared goal, and we benefit our citizens from it.
Do you have any other questions before I have one go back? All right, Ms. Schultz.
I just want to clarify that I appreciate Mr. McElveen's clarification. That's not correct, because it was McDonald's budget outgoing that we projected the 10 million from. So that was not where we found the reduction. Where we were hoping to get the 10 million and where that has been this whole time was originally from that budget, and we were waiting to see what the state and the House did. And the fiasco that the Virginia General Assembly created through the Medicaid expansion issue with Governor McAuliffe is what led to the delay. And where that money went and how we got to the loss of the 4.4, I don't know, but it's not from McDonald's budget.
It's mostly as a result of the state's revised revenue projections, because I think state also, but because of the loss in revenue in 2014, as well as what they're projecting for 15, they started back with the outgoing governor's introduced budget.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn. I encourage my colleagues to send Ms. Quinn and her staff your questions over the weekend before the Monday work session.
Thank you.
Now we will continue. We were on new business items, and just a reminder that there will not be a vote tonight on these items, but the action is scheduled at a future meeting. We just completed 6.01. Now, next, 6.02, we will appoint a voting delegate and alternate to the Virginia School Boards Association for the 2014 annual conference. 6.03, confirm committee liaisons and assignments as detailed in the agenda item. 6.04, approve the charges for the 2014 2015 for the following school board citizen advisory committees: adult and community education, advanced academic programs, career and technical education, facilities, planning advisory council, family and early childhood education program, Head Start, human relations, minority student achievement oversight, school health, students with disabilities, and Title I district advisory council is detailed in the agenda item. 6.05, accept the Virginia Department of Education designation of Fairfax County Public Schools as the Governor's Regional School for Science and Technology in Northern Virginia for 2014-2015. 6.06, adopt policy 8240, construction, maintenance service, bids, contracts, bonds, and conflict of interest as detailed in the agenda item. 6.07, adopt policy 8560, maintenance of physical facilities as detailed in the agenda item. 6.08, award of the contract. That one has been withdrawn, but it was listed. It was for Langley High School. And 6.09, adopt revisions to the approved 2014-2015 school calendar as detailed in the agenda item. And Dr. Garza, could you speak to that? The calendar.
Oh, yes. I am so sorry. I don't know where I was. On the, there are two changes that we are suggesting on this calendar. The calendar that you see before you largely remains the same, with the exception of, with the implementation of the full-day Mondays, one of the beneficial components of that work was also implementing a revised and different master schedule calendar for our school system that included strategic planning days throughout the school year. So the strategic planning days were the days that were added that were different from the original calendar that this board adopted much earlier in the year. So where those days were placed, we did denote that we ran into a couple of testing challenges. So the calendar before you does have two changes that we're asking for your consideration around. And that was on originally on October the 14th. That was a strategic planning day. It did conflict with PSAT testing, which is an important test that we administer to determine and get students ready for college. And we did not want to conflict with that. So after much debate and consternation and careful consideration, we're asking for that day to be moved to Monday, September the 29th. And then the final change on the calendar was the original one that was before you had a strategic planning day on May the 4th. And that also conflicted with a test, and it was an AP test. So we're asking your consideration of moving that date to March the 16th, I believe, which is a Monday. Isn't that what it is, the 16th? And we believe that we've had everyone check it and double check it to make sure there weren't any additional conflicts. But for our parents, the start remains the same. The calendar, in essence, remains the same, except for the 2 days that we're asking to be moved around to eliminate those conflicts that we had identified. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. This is listed tonight as new business for your final consideration on July the 24th.
All right, first question is from Ms. Evans.
Yes, thank you. And I think it's important that the public be real clear on what the new days are. You know, we did have one calendar where, and people do sometimes put it on their calendars, you know, a year ahead of time. So one of the things I had been looking for was the old calendar to compare with the new one. So I think somehow, some way, I'd like to suggest that we show what the earlier one was with the days off and what the change is. I think we have four new days now, correct? For students to be off of school.
That is correct.
Okay.
With the elimination of the time that we had on Mondays originally, we felt like it was very important to also have opportunities throughout the school year for that planning that would ordinarily occur on those Mondays to occur periodically throughout the year. So we're adding 4 strategic planning days. That will be an opportunity for us, depending upon the direction of the board around strategic planning. That'll be our opportunity to roll out work that we think is important division-wide. It also gives an opportunity for our schools to implement and have some professional development, but half that day is also additional time for our teachers.
And I hope we can be very clear with our parents. These are days when your kids are going to be home. So 4 more days. So whatever our communication is, I hope we're just real clear on those 4, and also in what we post.
Ms. Schultz.
Just one quick comment on the calendar, and I have one comment on another agenda item. So it's not just the additional 4 days, it's also the longer break, the longer winter break, and the additional holiday at spring, student holiday at spring break. So, I mean, I do think that just for parents, just to see, I like Ms. Evans' idea of maybe if there could just be like a floating highlight around what the previous approved calendar was, because we had an approved calendar out for 2014-15, and what's different with this new one, so that it can draw their attention to just, okay, this is what you thought you saw as a 2014-15 calendar, and this is what's new. These are the changes. So, and I just have a brief.
May I respond to
sure,
that real quickly?
Sure.
Point is very well taken. We will do that comparison to the first adopted calendar for next year. And I think that's what you're referring to. I think what we did here, and maybe we didn't go far enough, is we actually reflected in that bottom right-hand corner the changes from what the board of had adopted most recently. So that now that I'm hearing, and I agree with you, that we did not go far enough in helping explain the differences, and we will work on that in our communication strategy once this is adopted. So thank you.
And I just have an unrelated, and I just had a question for our clerk of court, clerk of court. Oh, I just changed her title to the clerk of the board. Under agenda item 6.04, for the charges, I know I spent time talking with Dr. Dockery. She was very kind talking to me while she was on the plane today, and I talked with Jane Lip, who is our new students special services assistant superintendent, that the ACSD charge is probably not going to be ready for action on the 24th. I know it's here. There's a confusion about whether it was supposed to be here. I mean, it's out there and it will be approved, but because of the personnel and organizational changes, we're going to meet next week and collectively work on that. And then I also met with Bob Shaw, who is the MSAOC new chair, yesterday, and I do have some questions about the MSAOC charge as well. And we had some ideas that we kicked around. So I just want to give a heads up to my 2 colleagues, even though that says new action on the 24th, that may not actually result in an action as it says here in the agenda. Thanks.
Ms. Smith.
I want to add on to Ms. Evans' comments about the calendar, because I don't know how much most of our parents understand there are still going to be some changes to the calendar, and they could be planning vacations. You know, so that's that trade-off. You know, we wait till the end of July to let them know what they are, but is there an awareness out there that we're making changes? I was comparing the original calendar we voted on in December of 2013 to this one, and we still had the 2-week December break. But one of the things I noticed from when we first looked at this, there were more 2-hour early release days, and I was just wondering what the change was there, why we got away from the 2-hour early release.
Well, they're just trade-offs. And when we look at the amount of time, you know, that was just looking at making sure that we're meeting the requirement of the 990 hours. In addition, in terms of comparing this change to the originally adopted calendar, we have in the past had what we called early dismissal days. That's not the right terminology. Help me with the terminology we used for that, where kids would come to school and we'd actually release them by 10 o'clock. You know, that we wouldn't serve lunch, so we had a real shortened day. We've done away with those. Attendance was not good on those days. And plus, if we get students to school and we're transporting them to school, we feel like we need to maximize the time. So we will no longer have those very, very shortened days. I can't remember the technical term we had for them. So those were another change. So we will make a point to outline the differences between what was previously adopted. We'll enumerate those as compared to the final calendar, or the one that we're proposing for your consideration on the 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Lateef.
I was at the last meeting, the last one in June, when the changes to the master calendar was made. Obviously, I did not have the same role as I do now, but changing to the 990-hour system versus the 180 days per the General Assembly's edict saying that we must have that amount of school built into our calendar, I think it is a welcome change, because as we saw going on to the 25th, attendance was pretty dismal compared to the rest of the school year, which is understandable. I mean, I went on the 25th myself to Langley sort of just to scope it out, and you know, it was not utilized well, but the fact is it's 2.5 hours. There's not much you can do, 10-minute classes. It just doesn't make sense. So having the 11-day buffer for snow days, we've seen, you know, our climate is sort of changing in Northern Virginia, considering the amount of snow and the amount of days we missed. My one question is, since we are now on the hour system versus the day system, we did lose a lot of school days this year, but we also had a plethora of 2-hour delays. If those add up, will that also affect the amount of hours and the number of days we'd have to make up? Thank you.
First of all, this calendar would meet both requirement, both 180-day requirement plus the 990-hour requirement. So it would, right now it meets both. Now if we find ourselves getting into a place where we're having to call off school quite a number of times, then we will have to revert back to the 990-hour to be compliant with the letter of the law. The change also provides us the opportunity to provide every student in our system a 20-minute recess every day, which I know we all value and think is important. We will have to monitor our early release days, not on the 180-day requirement, but I don't want to get too technical, but you ask a very good question, a very astute question, that we will have to watch that, because we still have wiggle room built into this calendar on the hours, but we'll have to be very cognizant of, you know, if we have quite a number of delayed openings, it could affect our hours. So we'll be watching that and monitoring that carefully.
Mr. Moon.
Dr. Garza, I have a question for, just one question for clarification. If you see a notation H, I think we might have discussed earlier, it says student holiday, but that also means actually school holiday, right? Because school staffs also get those days off.
Well, the reason it's reflected as a student holiday is an H, because, and it's been that way, that's not a change. It's been that way, we've used that terminology for many, many, many years. The reason it doesn't say school holiday is because our schools are open.
Schools are open.
And Mr. Moon did ask this question earlier, and I thought it was a very good question. But our schools remain open during the winter break. And so people know when our HR department develops work schedules, so individuals know, depending upon their job assignment, what days they have to work. But it is important for us to remain open for our public.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin.
I just wanted to say, Dr. Garza, I appreciate you trying to provide the clarification about the 180 versus the 990, because in listening to some of especially the media's representation of it, I think it's sort of been confusing for the public and for our families to understand. Do we just lengthen an already long, you know, ending in June by 11 days because that's the way they reference it? And so I kind of wanted our families to understand, no, we're still looking at that 180 days. The school year should look the same. It's just the building in of the 180 versus 990 is that buffer you've described. Should we find ourselves suddenly having 10 or 11 snow days to account for? So I just would say to my colleagues, when we see the media doing that, it might help if we can all, you know, shoot them text messages, emails, or something and remind them, because I have found, even as a Fairfax County parent, reading those news articles and myself asking, what did this board just do? So, you know, hopefully, Harris, that you asked great questions and that provided clarification, I think, for anybody who's listening this evening.
Thank you all. The next agenda item is Superintendent Matters. So right back to you, Dr. Garza.
Thank you. Our implementation plan for full day Mondays is well underway, and I want to thank, we have so many great partners, and Kimberly's in the room, our teacher organizations and others are working with us, because we need everyone at the table to help us find the solutions to making this a positive change for everyone involved. And I do appreciate everyone that's been working with us. And we have so many of our leadership team already in their new roles, including Marty Smith, who has been on the job now officially as Chief of Staff for how long? About a week. and this is all he's been doing. So we've met with principals, teacher organizations. We have forums coming up, focus groups. We have entire plan that we're executing to make sure that we've dotted every I and crossed every T. We want to be ready for students and for our school year to get off to a very, very positive start. We do have a set of frequently asked questions that we've been working on. Those should be posted on our website first thing in the morning. So I ask our parents and community if you have questions regarding how this is going to work and the details around that. I would encourage you to go to our website. We have a whole web landing page around the implementation of full day Mondays, and we'll continue to keep updating that frequently asked questions document to make sure that we're reflecting all the new questions that were being asked along the way. The Virginia Department of Education recognized John Struck as the 2014 Virginia History Teacher of the Year. Mr. Struck teaches AP U.S. History, AP Government, and honors 20th century world history at Thomas Jefferson High School. The Virginia Superintendent praised Mr. Struck for facilitating learning and critical thinking through his animated classroom discussions and probing questions. We're very proud of him. We've received quite a number of designations this year that we're proud of that are national distinctions. We've received yet another one that we're proud of. The Air Force Association's Cyber Patriot program has named FCPS as its 5th and only one of 5 Cyber Patriot Centers for Excellence. Cyber Patriot, the nation's largest and fastest growing youth cyber education program, is AFA's flagship STEM program dedicated to strengthening cyber skills among American youth. We've been involved with Cyber Patriot since 2011, and 2 of our school academy programs, Marshall and Chantilly, took top honors at the Cyber Patriot Awards this summer, and that program is continuing to grow, and it's very exciting. We're very proud of that. The National Wildlife Federation has awarded Flint Hill Elementary School the Green Flag Award. The Green Flag level requires a rigorous combination of environmental audits, curriculum reinvention, and internal and external monitoring. One other FCPS school, Lanier Middle School, also was awarded the Green Flag, but that was back in 2011, so we're proud of the schools. Mr. Lateef, congratulations. We're very proud that you're going to be serving on our school board. I know your family is gone now, but please extend to them our congratulations as well, because I know they're very proud of you. We look forward to working with you. As I've said before in earlier meetings, I'm really proud to be a part of an organization that has a student representative on the school board. You'd be surprised to learn probably that it's unique that a school division has a student representative officially on the school board. And I find that voice brought to a lot of our discussions is so valuable. So look forward to working with you. Let me know how I can help you. You sound like you have a plan. I'm happy to help and happy to tag along with you. So I look forward to the invitations to do that. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Moon. I've enjoyed working with you, sir, this past year. As a new superintendent here in Fairfax County Public Schools, I will tell you that I believe that you've demonstrated wonderful patience with me, and you are a very good teacher, for I've learned a lot from you. So I want to thank you for your significant investment of time, because I have seen firsthand that investment of time, and I very much appreciate that and your leadership over this past year. So thank you, sir. Also want to congratulate Ms. Darnett Koufax and Mr. Velkoff in their new roles. And on behalf of our entire leadership team, I will tell you that we look forward to working with you both. And then to all of the board, I look forward to our continued work together. Thank you, my goodness, for this, the commendation tonight. That was a very nice surprise, and it really means a lot to me. I spoke just a year ago at our leadership conference about, what can be. And here, there's so much that we can accomplish. So I love to think about what can be, and it starts with all of us. And each of you and your leadership is essential to that work moving forward. I'm excited. Next weekend, we'll start our strategic planning process. That's really going to set the process has started, but in terms of your part and your opportunity to really shape that work moving forward is exciting, and so I look forward to that. As I said earlier, I'm excited about the future, and I look forward to the year ahead and working with each and every one of you. Remember what can be. That's exciting. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garza. The next agenda item is board reports, and we have several because we didn't do it last week, I understand. First on the list is public engagement, and Ms. Schultz will be reporting on that.
I will. We have more plans in place for the Education Summit, which is going to be October 25th. I think we're still on a TBD. We're looking at a couple of locations to change things up. Our preferred location was not available, and I've yet to hear back from Ms. Hunter, or the PC community has not gotten a nail down of that yet. The PEC also had kind of this mission to go out and investigate an interfaith arrangement with the interfaith communities throughout Fairfax County. As such, I attended a luncheon down in Mr. Stork's neck of the woods with members across the county and the Interfaith Council from the Board of Supervisors, and presented the idea of having a breakfast or a meeting scheduled in the fall, and I will say it was enthusiastically welcomed, and they very much look forward to continuing opening the dialogue between the school division and the needs of children that are met, elsewhere beyond the division. I am supposed to be going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. I don't have that date yet for Ms. Hunter, but look forward to having that sometime soon. And the later start times wrap-up was given to us through a report that went out, to all of us in a very, I think maybe the largest PDF document I've ever seen in my life. It was so large that we had to have a hyperlink to it, and thank you, Dr. Garza, for that. But we all got that, and it was the feedback from the community. So that's all I've got. I know there's something else out there on the Parent Advocacy Toolkit, but I don't have an update on that.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Mr. Moon for strategic planning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A strategic planning work session was held on June 12, 2014, where we did invite members on the County Board of Supervisors, and 3 supervisors graciously took their time out of their busy schedule to join us and provided us very beneficial insight and their feedback on our process and what our strategic priority should be.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. Mr. Stork for audit.
We met and discussed our general audit reports, as well as we spent most of our time on the risk assessment, the comprehensive risk assessment. We're just finishing that up, and the consultants were presenting to the work session after our meeting. Additionally, we talked about, we passed out some materials on the school board audit office structures around the country as a source for us to consider our own audit office structure changes, which we've discussed in our most recent meeting. So there'll be more to report on that issue on Monday, and I will talk a little bit more about that in board matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stork. Next, for governance, operational expectations, and superintendent's evaluation, Ms. Smith.
When we had our governance work session, we went over the relationship with the board OE with the superintendent, and we're going to work on some changes with the superintendent for the measures. We talked about the retreat that will be happening July 18th and 19th, and then that was the main work there. The superintendent's evaluation, the board agreed to the evaluation form that we will be using for this next year that started July 1, and we had to change our evaluation system because of state requirements, and so we approved that. Thank you.
Thank you. There was no forum tonight. I was to report out on that, but we had canceled the forum. Next on...
Actually, there was a report from Special Services, right? Work session? SRNR, was it?
We had two issues from the last work session. One was the school board accepted the superintendent relationship with the board OE. There was an opportunity for board members if they wished to offer any amendments to the SRNR. There were no amendments to the SRNR, and the World Languages report was canceled, and it will be presented at the work session on Monday. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we will have board matters, and I will call on Mr. Stork.
The audit committee met this week, and we discussed
we're on board matters? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
We discussed the work session on Monday when we're going to be talking about the structure of the school board audit office. I just want to alert my colleagues that I'll be sending out an email sometime this evening that will describe some of the things that the audit committee has been considering, and most importantly to formally invite you all to a meeting of the audit committee. Our meeting starts at 8:30, but we have the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Sharon Bulva, will be attending our meeting at 9:30 on Monday, and she's going to be presenting to us the current system that the Board of Supervisors uses for auditing purposes. So it's an opportunity for any of you who want to know more about what the Board of Supervisors auditing process is to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velkoff. Ms. Reed.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I want to congratulate our new chair and vice chair and tell you that it's a new day, and we're all looking forward, I speak for myself, looking forward to working with you and developing a new spirit of teamwork as we go forward. We've got a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Ms. McLaughlin.
First of all, a bit of wonderful news. Robinson Secondary School, I should say, was just awarded the Wells Fargo Cup. There are 6 high schools in the state for each of the 6 groups, one selected for each, and Robinson is in the powerhouse, largest of all the high schools in Virginia, and they, for the first time, are a winner of basically the overall record of state-level competitions in 27 different sports. So the performance of the Robinson athletes made them the best of the best high schools this year in their Group 6A, and obviously very excited for the school school and the tremendous athleticism that came out of Robinson this year. And point of interest is among the top 5 finishers for the state this year in that grouping, Lake Braddock and Chantilly were also among the top 5 in the state. So kudos to really all 3 of those schools for their performance this year. And I want to echo I think the thoughtful words that my colleague Ms. Reed just said, and also to ask of both our new chair and vice chair that I noticed as we discussed new business, we will be voting on our committee assignments and liaisons, and so I would hope that we can really engage in some thoughtful review of, and Ms. Derenak-Koufax mentioned this, and I appreciated her sensitivities to this, at looking at where our history has been together as a board over the last 2 years in our committee assignments, and really hopefully begin moving in a very positive way of board members all feeling included and inclusive in the work we do together.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Mr. Moon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few weeks ago, Mr. McAlvin and I had attended almost 20 graduations, and yet I was not done with the graduation yet because I attended another one at Woodson High School earlier this afternoon, and this one happened to be for custodial certification graduation. There were 98 grown-ups who were as proud as any high schooler graduating from high school. They were proud to have completed their programs with hoping for career promotion, career advancement.
Ms. Smith? Mr. McElveen? Ms. Schultz?
First, I have condolences to the Fairfax High School community in the loss of 2 of their students on a return from Beach Week. That's just such a sad way to end such a wonderful career within FCPS. So my condolences to that community. And on a happier note, I share with Ms. McLaughlin, and particularly as a Robinson Ram parent, profound pride and congratulations to the Robinson community in the recognition and receipt of the Wells Fargo Cup. This is a very prestigious and a cumulative award that takes a tremendous amount of accomplishment, not just on one team or 2 teams, but across the board. And the faculty and staff and student athletes at Robinson are to be commended.
Ms. Evans?
Pass.
Ms. Strauss?
I'd like to welcome Mr. Lateef again to the board. It is very exciting to have you with us. And I have known Mr. Lateef since he was a very young student and have been watching him very proudly. See him grow into quite an accomplished young man. So I know you will add a lot of wisdom to our board. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank again the people who came out this evening, Amin Al-Dali and Elizabeth Ende, who are folks from my community. And during our budget hearings, an awful lot of folks from McLean and Langley came out. And I'm always very pleased when people step forward to participate in our public process. We are only as good as the discussions that come forward. So I'm always very grateful. I just wanted to draw people's attention. There was a very interesting report that came out from the Center for American Progress. It's called a Return on Educational Investment. It is a rather fascinating study trying to connect school spending and student achievement. It's basically an efficiency look at student outcomes. And it is a tool. I recommend that you take a look at it. It was in our Washington Post clips several days ago. And it enables you to look at all states, all school divisions, to see, and they get pretty close to an apples-to-apples comparison. So it's very thought-provoking. I was very pleased to see that Fairfax County Public Schools comes out. It's quite efficient. We're green in all the categories. But it's a very interesting tool, and I appreciate the attempt to take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. And I just wanted to thank my colleagues. I recently experienced a personal loss, and your good thoughts and encouragement have helped me get through it, and I truly appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And this meeting is adjourned.